I want to welcome you to the first of our sort of webinar series for admitted students. This is a new endeavor for the three of us, and obviously we're in uncharted waters, I think, for everybody in terms of the college search process, but wanted to try and do everything we could to be able to bring information to you that is going to be relevant to your college search process, and specifically sort of talking about the Wabash curriculum, the benefits of the liberal arts, and the new student roadmap and sort of the formal processes of enrolling at Wabash in the fall. So I have three panelists here with me today. Dr. Bobby Horton, who is a professor of psychology, Dr. John Jump, who is the Associate Dean of the college and the registrar, and then myself, Tyler Wade. I'm the Associate Director of Enrollment Systems. I work in the admissions office. We're really happy to be with you today. I'll kind of go over some specifics on the technical function, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Horton for the formal presentation. But if you have questions, and we know that we had some folks submit questions on the front end, we'll go over those towards the end of the call if we haven't covered them. If you have questions, you can use the chat function within Zoom to kind of put your questions here on the side and send them to me, and I'll be sure to have those questions answered. You can also submit them via the Q&A function as well. And if you have a specific thing, you can also raise your hand and we can allow you to talk and have your questions answered within the webinar. So there will be a bunch of different ways to be able to interact with us. So without further ado, and hopefully everything is working okay for everyone so far, I will turn it over to Dr. Horton.
Okay. Well, I just want to say I'm happy to be with you. Again, I'm sorry we can't welcome you all to campus today. Wabash, we pride ourselves on relationships and personal interaction, and this doesn't seem quite as personal as we like for it to be, but still we hope it can be a valuable experience. I do want to introduce you very quickly to the newest member of our family. She is our our quarantine dog, our new dog. I just got her a week ago. Had to give our kids something to do, basically. So Tyler mentioned that John and I are going to spend some time talking about the Wabash academic experience. We want to give you a sense of what your first year at the college and even some later years at the college might look like in terms of the courses you take, some experiences you can have. So I'm going to start off and talk in somewhat broad ways about our curriculum, and then about some of the really cool experiences that you can have within that curriculum. Then I'm going to turn it over to Dean Jump, and he is going to talk about some of the courses that you might take as a freshman, depending on the area of interest that you come in with. And then I'm going to talk again about one course that all of you will take, one of our freshman seminar classes. Then we'll hand it back to Mr. Wade, and he'll sort of bring us home. So first, let's talk about sort of our broader Wabash curriculum. So Tyler, we can go to the next slide. So our curriculum at Wabash is pretty standard. I don't expect you to memorize this. We're not going to give you a quiz today, and really never. But we tend to think of our curriculum in terms of three pillars: foundational courses, distribution and proficiency requirements, and major and minor. And each pillar does a slightly different thing. Our foundational freshman courses, these are required freshman seminar classes that we think of as giving you a good base in careful reading, critical thinking, effective communication, both orally and in written form. You'll take the freshman tutorial class in the fall. All of our freshmen take it. And then Enduring Questions is our spring semester class. And I'll talk a little more about freshman tutorial here in a few minutes. Our distribution and proficiency requirements are the curriculum where we ask you we add breadth to your education. We want you to be sort of an interesting person who can think of things in different ways and from different perspectives. And so we have a variety of different types of courses we'll ask you to take. I've put in there quantitative literacy. That's one of our distribution areas. We ask you to take 2 courses in quantitative literacy, a couple of courses in natural sciences, 3 courses in behavioral sciences, et cetera. So I won't go through each of them. Fair to say that as you start your Wabash career, especially as you get to be a sophomore and junior. Your academic advisor will talk to you lots about those proficiency and distribution requirements. And then our major and minor, that's where we ask you to dive deeply into a couple of different areas. All of you will have to declare a major. That'll be sort of your singular central academic home. You'll get to know the professors and the other students in that discipline very well. And you'll take at least 9 courses in that area. And then you'll probably have a minor. You can double major, and if you do, then you don't actually have to have a minor, but most of our students have a major and a minor, which is a secondary academic focus. You take typically 5 classes. And a 7 class. Credits and the requirements we have are pretty standard for a liberal arts college like us, and even places like in your internet like okay, sorry about that, folks. I am back, hopefully, and everybody can hear me. So what I was saying is that this curriculum is relatively standard, but I think what we are most proud of and what sets Wabash apart is what happens in each of these credits and all the really cool experiences you can have as part of this curriculum as you're earning credits towards your degree. So I'm just going to take you through some of what I think are some of the cool aspects of this curriculum. Again, it looks pretty standard, and in some ways but there's some pretty cool stuff that happens at the granular level when you start thinking about the kinds of courses we offer. So to start, traditional topic of the liberal arts. So yes, we have courses where you read Plato and you take calculus and you study psychology, where you talk a little bit about Freud, not too much, and about E.F. Skinner and Jean Piaget. But we also have lots of courses that, go ahead, Tyler, take you into interesting conversations about everyday things. So for instance, go ahead, we have a whole suite of courses that are all about video games. Go ahead, next 2. So the gentleman pictured right here, Michael Abbott on the top and Eric Fries on the bottom, teach a number of courses about video games as storytelling, writing for video games, the philosophy of video games. I think there are 4 or 5 different courses in different departments on campus that all have video games as a focus, right? I'm guessing there might be a few of you out there who play some video games, maybe a little bit of Fortnite, maybe some Apex Legends, Minecraft, something. So it's a part of your everyday world, but part of the liberal arts education, we think, is taking some of these common experiences you have every day and complexifying them, intellectualizing them, getting you to see them from a different perspective. So on a similar vein, we have lots of courses about food and cooking. We have courses about baseball. We have courses about a variety of different common things you don't think of as sort of college level topics, but in many ways, college level work is about how you think about something, not so much what you're thinking about. And that's represented in courses like these. Another pretty cool thing I think about our curriculum is it gets outside the boundaries of classroom walls. So pictured here are 2 people, Bob Royalty on the left, who's in our history department now, and Crystal Benedict's on the right, who's in our English department, who teach courses specifically designed to get our students out into the Montgomery County Crawfordsville community, right? So gone are the days when education is just about you sitting in 4 walls and taking in information from a professor and then sort of spitting it back out. We want you to not just be engaged in active ways with the material. We certainly want that, but we also want you using information and ideas you're gathering in a course in a real way, in a meaningful way, in a genuine way. And these two courses are just examples of that. So the Religion 290 course is a course that Professor Royalty teaches, where the students actually take field trips to different religious congregations in Indianapolis, and they learn about different religions, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, by talking to people about their traditions and practices, talking to people who actually practice those religions, right? So it's not just book learning, it's interpersonal and meaningful learning. Professor Benedict's Writing in the Community course actually engages students with nonprofit organizations in Montgomery County, Indiana, and they write grants for these nonprofit organizations. So they use their writing skills to help nonprofit organizations. And they've actually been responsible for earning thousands of dollars for local nonprofits while putting to use their skills as writers and becoming better writers in the process. So our curriculum, as standard as it might look, is going to engage you sort of in new ways of thinking about everyday things. It's going to get you out of the classroom and into your community. And it's also going to get you way out of the classroom and really all around the world. I hope, go ahead, Taylor. I hope you have already talked to somebody or have heard about the various ways, various opportunities for study abroad at Wabash. I think even on our website, we have a little tagline, bring your passport, because every year there are many opportunities for students to get out of Indiana, even get out of the United States, to really broaden their perspective on the world they inhabit. So we have sort of two ways to study abroad. We have the traditional semester abroad experience, typically happens in your junior year, and probably 30 or so students a year will spend a full semester studying in Spain or Scotland or Australia in these different locales. But more students than that will go abroad as part of an immersion course. And those are the pictures you see here are brief experiences that were part of a group or a course that these students were taking. So for instance, in the top right, that's Joe Garcia. He's in Iceland at the time, and he took a class in environmental economics. And as part of that class, over, I believe it was spring break last year, they took a trip to Iceland. They toured Iceland and talked to a variety of people around Iceland about the geothermal activity in the area and the way that country is translating that into energy and the economic impact of that. And so as Joe is there climbing through the ice in Iceland, he's also earning credit for his Wabash degree and having a really enriching experience at the same time. On the left, you see guys in Jerusalem. Bottom left, you see one of our classes in Vietnam. And I wanted to put the picture on the bottom right in. This is our basketball team. Now, this was not part of a course, but we also encourage our coaches every couple of years, as the funds allow, to take our sports teams abroad if they can manage it. And I think it was last year, Coach Brummett took his team, his family, and his team to Ireland. And this is the team in front of Galway Chapel in Ireland. We'll go to the next one. This map, even though the arrows are sort of funny, sort of point to places that Wabash courses have gone in the last few years. So there's lots of places we go, again, some of them in the Western Hemisphere, many of them not. Northern, Southern Hemisphere, we sort of span the globe. It's important to note that there are some of these courses that are only open to upper class students, but most of them are open to just about anybody. Even for first or second semester freshmen, certainly for sophomores and beyond. And most of them cost nothing in addition to your regular tuition and fees. The college picks up the cost for flights, for lodging, for food, and then the students who go on these trips simply bring money for incidentals or souvenirs, etc. So we really are trying to emphasize the opportunity as part of our academic curriculum to get across, get outside of your comfort zone physically, get into new areas, to experience new cultures, really as a way to grow in important ways. Okay, so we've said our curriculum may look sort of standard, but it's going to engage you in conversations about everyday things or maybe from your perspective. going to take you outside the boundaries of our classroom, into the community and around the world. And it's important to note that we have a good history and very good evidence that our curriculum prepares you effectively to get a job. And I'm guessing there's somebody out there who cares about that. Hopefully all of you care a little bit, maybe not too much, but some, right? At the end of the day, we want you to have a fantastic experience at Wabash in your 4 years. And we also know that our job in the curriculum is to help prepare you to be an effective citizen and to be an effective worker in a profession of your choice, right? Some of the bullet points on this slide just point out some of the evidence about how effective our curriculum is and how effective our staff is at helping you prepare for a job. So been ranked in the top 5 for internships, number 1 for internships, top 5 for career services for many, many years. 86% of our students pursue an internship, and our placement rate, our 6-month placement rate for the last 2 years is around 30 to 35%, about right, yeah, well, 25 to 30% higher than institutions like ours. That placement rate means that 100% of the class of 2018 and 99.5% of the class of 2019, all but like one guy, had a job or were in graduate school 6 months after graduation. The comparable rates for colleges like ours are about 70%, 73%. So we're effectively preparing you, and our staff, our career services staff, our development staff, works really actively with students to help them identify opportunities, apply for those opportunities, and then land a position in a place that they really love. Now, I want to take this chance as we turn toward our attention to this career focus, that we also like to point out that where you end up after Wabash is often not exactly where you expected to end up when you entered Wabash, okay? Wabash, we pride ourselves on helping you find a path of, as you see there, unexpected passion, unexpected success. I think it's fair to say that most Wabash students do not come in and pursue exactly the path they expected to pursue, right? It's more the rule than the exception for a Wabash student to come in and say, you know, I think I'm going to major in X, but then they end up majoring in Y. Or to come in and think, well, I think I want to do X after Wabash, but they end up doing Z, right? And ending up loving what they're doing and being really, really successful. I just present 2 examples to you here. On the left, Jeremy Robinson. He graduated in 2004 by his own admission. He came into Wabash as a budding lawyer, doctor, basically anything that would make him some money, right? Which is fair, we get that. As he got into Wabash, he fell in love with Spanish and English literature, double majored, became a Rhodes Scholar, went to Oxford University in England, got a master's degree. Could have gone lots of places, and has devoted himself to be a teacher at the Noble Network of Schools in Chicago. That school system is devoted to helping low-income students realize their own college dream. So Jeremy ended up a wonderfully successful person in a wonderfully meaningful place, making a great life for himself, but it's not exactly the life he expected to make, right? He ended up in a very different place than he thought he would. Gary Reamy on the right, somewhat similar story. Came in to Wabash, he majored in biology, thought he wanted to be a doctor, made it all the way through Wabash with a biology major, and then decided, really don't want to go to med school. So he took a job with John Hancock, worked his way up. He'll tell you the critical thinking and communication skills he developed at Wabash made him an effective financial advisor, became a principal at John Hancock, and then retired some years ago, quite young, and founded a music production company. His first love was country music, so now he owns and helps manage a music production company in Nashville, Tennessee. Again, not at all the place that Gary Reamy thought he would be, but the Wabash curriculum opened his eyes to different ways of thinking, different paths of success, and he was prepared to take those as the opportunities arose. So I think I want you to sort of see some of the interesting places our curriculum can take you. Again, we have a fairly standard set of graduation requirements that your academic advisors will help you work through as you work towards graduation. But the kinds of experiences you can have in that curriculum are really, really profound and really, really meaningful. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dean Jump, and he's actually going to talk in more specific terms about some of the courses you are likely to take in your first year at Wabash and how you will get into those courses a little bit. So thank you, and Dean Jump.
Okay, thank you, Professor Horton, and welcome everybody. I'm glad you're joining us today online. I wish we could see you all in person, but hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. I'm going to talk about common first year courses, and I want to emphasize from the very beginning that these are not courses that you have to come in thinking I have to take all of these in my first year. You will make choices about what you take based on your own preferences and goals. So these courses I'm going to mention here, you don't have to feel like all of them have to get on your freshman year schedule. These are just courses that commonly do get on a lot of freshman year schedules. And so we're going to focus on them for just a little bit. Now, one course that you'll contend with right at the very beginning is English 101 composition. When Professor Horton showed you the one of the early slides showed you all the distribution and proficiency requirements, which is one of the 3 pillars of the curriculum. One of those was an English proficiency requirement. The English 101 course addresses that requirement. Now, why do we address this at the very beginning of your career? Because it's so crucial that you know how to write using a clear central thesis with logical organization, with well-substantiated ideas, with the appropriate language, grammar, punctuation, etc. It's really an essential element of a liberal arts education. Who will take this class? Everybody is required to meet the English proficiency requirement. Now, not everybody, on the other hand, will take the English 101 class. We will take a look at ACT scores coming in. We will combine the English and reading scores from ACT, and we will do a median of those. And the median, of course, changes year to year. It's typically in the area of about 46 English plus reading scores from those tests. Folks who score below that median will be placed into the English 101 class. This is such a crucial requirement to address that we just put it right on your schedule for you. And you'll pick around those courses in your freshman fall. If you score above the median, you can be exempted from the proficiency requirement. If there's more information that you want about that, you can contact Professor Benedicts. She is the chair of the English department, and her email address is there. Okay, so on this next slide, we will talk about the foreign language courses. Now, these courses will help you develop linguistic tools to communicate in another language and understand, compare, distinguish differences between cultures. Everybody will address the foreign language requirements at some point during their time at Wabash. The only students who are exempt from this one are students for whom English is not their first language already. Now, how do you know which language you're going to take? Well, a couple of things to say about that. Everybody should take the placement test for the language they took in high school, and you have that opportunity to take that test as you work your way through the new student roadmap, which Tyler will say a little bit more about when we get to that point of this presentation. Now, everybody needs to take that test for the language they have experience with. It doesn't mean that you have to take that language when you arrive at Wabash. You are perfectly free to start fresh in a new language. Say you've never taken Greek before and it really interests you. Well, you can do that. The results of the placement test just tell us at what point you should start, and what would be the appropriate first class for you to take if you come to Wabash and take that language. If you have further questions about that, I would refer you to Professor Jane Hardy. She is the Modern Languages chair of the department, and there is her email. Okay, on the following slide, we will talk about calculus courses. Now, another of the requirements that Professor Horton mentioned at the very beginning here is a quantitative literacy requirement. Everybody will take 2 credits of quantitative literacy before they graduate from Wabash. Now, does everybody have to take calculus? Absolutely not. Calculus is one way to address that quantitative literacy requirement, but there are other ways as well. Who does take calculus? Well, primarily, it's students who plan to major in one of those majors that we have listed on the slide here: biochemistry, chemistry, physics, economics, financial economics, or mathematics. Calculus is also required if you are planning to apply to medical school. In most cases, you might be majoring in one of those things anyway if you're going to apply to medical school, but let me emphasize that you can major in absolutely anything and still apply to medical school as long as you have the right courses under your belt to support that application. And we will give you guidance if that's an interest area of yours. We will set you up with a pre-health advisor to make those correct choices. Now, very much like the foreign language placement test, there is also a math placement test on the new student roadmap, and every incoming student should take that test. On the basis of that test, you'll get one of 2 placements assigned to you. It will either be Math 10, the pre-calculus course, or the Math 111, which is Calculus 1. Now, depending on your background in high school, depending on whatever AP courses you may bring, for instance, you could end up with a higher placement than that. But your initial placement is usually one of those 2 placements. And then if it turns out to be higher than that, we will get to that point when you are getting advice and actually choosing classes. The person to contact for more information about calculus and related mathematics courses would be Professor Chad Westfall. He is the chair of the Mathematics and Computer Science Department, and you can see his email address there. Okay, and on the next slide, finally, we'll talk about lab science courses. Now, there is a requirement for graduation, 2 credits of lab sciences. And lab sciences, of course, are an important component of your education in that we want to ensure that you're able to make observations, generate hypotheses, collect, evaluate data, and communicate those results effectively. Which classes are we talking about when we talk about lab sciences? As an incoming freshman, you'd probably be choosing from the biology 111, chemistry 111, or physics 111. Again, everybody will take at least 2 credits of some lab science during the time they're here. Now, the 111 courses are designed for people who intend to major in one of those disciplines or a related discipline. There are other classes that you'd be able to take later if you're going to major in something else. Each of those departments has options for non-majors as well. Who takes the biochem or physics 111? Typically people in pre-health tracks or pre-engineering tracks, and of course science majors who want to major in one of those areas. These are majors where it's important to start early on these paths. So it will be an important thing to share with your academic advisor that this is your intention early on in your initial scheduling meetings. Now, who can you contact for more information about these? The pre-health advisor, which I made some reference to earlier, is Ms. Jill Rogers, and there is her contact information. And for pre-engineering, you would want to talk to Professor Nathan Tompkins. He's the physics professor, and there's his email. I should add that, and if you're interested in engineering, you may already know that we have a few different 3-2 programs in engineering. We are associated with Columbia University in New York, with Washington University in St. Louis, and with Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. And as part of those programs, there is a path for completing 3 years of study at Wabash, then 2 years at one of those other schools, and finishing at the end of that 5-year period with degrees from both schools. But it's a very prescribed path, and it's especially important to have early conversation with both your academic advisor and with Professor Tompkins if that is your goal. Okay, so those are some common first-year courses. Again, won't necessarily show up on every one of your schedules, but might show up on a lot of them as you choose. And so now I think Tyler Wade is going to take us into a discussion about the new student roadmap. And, oh, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. We're going to go back to Professor Horton, who's going to say a little bit more about the freshman tutorial.
Yeah, thanks, John. So yeah, I just want to follow up with what Dean Jump said. I think that, the courses that he was talking about are very common ones for freshmen to take. Also want you to understand that you're going to have a lot of guidance as you start to think about which courses you could and should take. Each of you is going to have an academic advisor that's assigned to you for your first 2 years. And that person, you'll get to meet that person as part of our Wabash 101 program, which will happen in June. And it's actually as part of that program that you will talk with your advisor and start making the decisions about which of those courses to take. Should you take calculus or not? Should you take a lab science or not? Should you take a modern language course? So we'll make sure that you get lots of guidance, because I know it can be a little bit confusing, especially as we talk about it in a batch here today. I'm going to talk about a course that all of you will actually end up taking. As John said, the courses he was discussing are ones that you may choose to take, but you may not. All of you will take the freshman tutorial. The freshman tutorial is a required freshman seminar class. And so I want to talk a little bit about it and then talk about how you might choose which tutorial to take. So all of you have to take a tutorial, but the tutorials are different. They have different topics, they have different instructors, they have different syllabi, and you're going to get a chance to choose which of those courses you'd like to take. So first of all, a little bit about the course. As you see there on the slide, freshman tutorial is a small seminar class. So you're going to take it with all freshmen. It'll be probably no more than 14 other freshmen. And you'll take tutorial with those guys. And you'll actually also take the required spring semester course Enduring Questions with that same group. The course is focused on foundational intellectual skills of careful reading, effective written and oral communication, building community, introducing you and acclimating you to the liberal arts, and of course, critical thinking, which is a part of sort of everything we do. Importantly, your advisor, your academic advisor, will be attached to that course. Very often, they are the instructor for that course. So for most of you, you'll see your academic advisor at least twice a week during your fall semester, because they'll be your instructor for that course. That isn't always true, but even if it's not true, then very likely your academic advisor will be your Enduring Questions instructor, or will be attached to that course in some way. So we will assign you to that person, to your advisor, as a function of which tutorial you choose. Here in just a couple of weeks, we're going to actually let you start going online and expressing your preferences for which tutorial to take. So it's actually the first course that you will select during your lead up to your first semester at Wabash, and you'll actually start selecting it before you get a chance to talk to any other academic advisor. So I do want to talk a little bit about how you go about selecting. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. These are just some of the titles. So go ahead and click through these. So what you're seeing here are a bunch of the titles of the freshman tutorials this semester. There are going to be 18 total courses, right? But all of them are about something very different, right? So when we recruit faculty to teach in this program, we encourage them to teach something that isn't quite in their area of expertise, but is an area of interest for them, right? So you've got swords and sorcery and reality, medieval warfare, and fantasy literature and history. That is a history professor who is teaching that class, who has some interest in the Middle Ages and weaponry of the Middle Ages. But that course is going to be not going to include a big history textbook. It's going to be really interesting readings, a lot of fictional readings about medieval warfare. Water in the public health, one of our biology professors teaches that. Me, myself, and my brain, a psychologist. Sports and the law, that's our athletic director, is going to teach a freshman tutorial. How do we unite our nation? That's a political scientist teaching that course. I think there's another title. Go ahead, Tyler, hit. There we go. And there's actually a tutorial called baseball, which is going to be taught by a rhetoric professor who loves baseball, and he teaches a tutorial about baseball every couple of semesters. So there's going to be 18 different courses, and I promise you all of them will be really, really interesting. You're going to read interesting things, some fiction, some nonfiction. You're going to do a decent amount of writing. And twice a week, you're going to get together as a class, and you're going to talk to other guys in your class about what you're reading, what your ideas are about those readings. So how do you choose? Well, first of all, I want to encourage you not to just choose based on title, okay? Once our selection system opens up, you're going to see this kind of entry, right? What you see there is the information you're going to have about each of the tutorial options. The part in black right there at the top is the title, right? So FRT is freshman tutorial, 101 is just a number, and then 11 happens to be a particular section of the tutorial. Water and public health, all hands on deck, that's the title of the tutorial. It tells you something about the class, but not everything you need to know to express your preference, right? So please do not base your tutorial preferences just on the title. You got to keep reading, okay? So the next part in blue there is the faculty person. So you're not only going to learn the name of the faculty person, but there's going to be a little description about what they like to do, where they work at college, what kinds of things they're interested in. So I think that's sort of important, right? You do not need to pick a tutorial that is taught by somebody in a discipline you want to major in. I want to dissuade you of that notion, right? You can, there's nothing wrong with it, but please don't think you have to think of this as a majors course. This is an all college course. This is about foundational skills that can apply to any course that you take. So, but do look at who is teaching the course, and if you share some interests, if you're interested in that person, that's a reason to think about expressing a preference for that course. And then the longer part there in red on this slide is the course description. It's in that course description where you'll get a sense of what you're going to do in that tutorial, what you might read, what kinds of experiences you might have, if there's any films you might watch. Those descriptions will tell you quite a bit about what the experience in the course is going to be like. But that's probably the most important aspect to look at as you're thinking about what tutorial to select. Okay, so again, that selection system will open up here in just a couple of weeks. You'll express some preferences. I think we're going to ask you to express as many as 5 preferences, right, and rank them. And we will do everything we can to make sure everybody gets one of their top selections, right? You may not get your top selection, but we'll work as hard as we can to make sure everybody gets one of their top preferences. Okay, so again, that's a course you all take, and it's an exciting opportunity to pick something that you're sort of interested in and excited to learn something about. Okay, all right, I think that's it for me. So I'm going to turn it over. I believe that's my last slide. Yep, to Tyler Wade, and he's going to take you through the next steps on your Wabash journey.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Bobby and John. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the new student roadmap. So the next steps for becoming a Wabash man. So hopefully you guys are getting closer to making a decision and know that Wabash is the right place for you. And so what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about how we get you there. So the first step in that is obviously paying your enrollment deposit. The $350 enrollment deposit to secure your spot in the entering class is due on May the 1st. So coming up here in a little over a month or so. Students who pay their deposit earlier will have priority in requesting their tutorial and submitting their housing application. So Dr. Jump and Dr. Horton sort of mentioned this tutorial selection process, housing selection process. If students have paid their deposit earlier, they will get the first crack at being able to submit their housing application and to complete the tutorial registration form. So it may be to your benefit to pay your enrollment deposit sooner than May 1st so that you can get an earlier access for that. You pay the enrollment deposit by logging onto your application status page and accepting the offer of admission within your application status portal. If you have questions about that, we'll kind of talk about that at the end of how we can help you be able to access that. So once you've paid your enrollment deposit, it's time for you to start working on your new student roadmap. You will utilize the new student roadmap to complete component parts, so each steps along the checkway of you becoming a Wabash student. This will include things like confirming your academic interest, selecting your freshman tutorial, applying for housing, and completing financial aid information. We will add new items to this checklist throughout the spring and summer. So you're going to want to check back often and make sure you've completed each step of that roadmap. Also want to note, it's important to know that most of the items of the new student roadmap will show as complete immediately upon submission. However, some items may take more time. So some people freak out a lot if there's not a green check mark next to something that they've done. Because we have to receive information a lot of times from the federal government, it may take 3 to 5 business days for us to mark all items as satisfied. So we just ask folks to be patient while we wait on those to be completed. The new student roadmap is sort of the online portion of the information that you complete to enroll in campus this fall. And then another important part of that process is going to be Wabash 101. So our Wabash 101 is a one-day sort of pre-orientation program designed to make sure that you have all the information you need before enrolling in classes this fall. You'll be able to work with a faculty advisor to start planning your schedule, ask questions about housing, meet with your future classmates and friends. There'll be some opportunities to ask questions of the business office and financial aid. Really just sort of a chance to make sure you have all of your ducks in a row, everything lined up for you to come to Wabash this fall. Attendance at Wabash 101 is not required, but it is recommended. However, if students are coming from abroad, especially, it may be difficult for you to get here in June and then to come back again in August. And so we will do everything we can to deliver as much of that content to you virtually as possible. There's also international student orientation that takes place as well. Our plan is to currently host Wabash 101 on campus. The dates to put in your calendar are June 12th, 19th, and 26th. And again, you only need to come to one of those dates, and those are 3 Fridays in June. Obviously, these dates are subject to change based on the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. So should we still have issues being able to host events on campus or being able to gather in large places, we'll be sending you updated information as soon as we have that available. But those are good save the dates for you to have at this point for those Wabash 101 programs. Another date to put on your calendar is New Student Saturday, which is going to be on Saturday, August the 22nd. This is a time when students will move to campus and will start sort of their Wabash journey. As I'd mentioned before, international students may come earlier than that, typically by about a week or so. Some fall sport athletes will come a little bit earlier than that. And your coaches will be contacting you about that process, but all students will be here on Saturday, August the 22nd. That's also an important time for your families to be able to come to campus to see you get rung in. So one of our important traditions at Wabash is the class is rung in and rung out by the president. And so this is an important tradition that will take place on August 22nd, definitely one that you want to make sure that your families attend. New student orientation then goes from the 22nd through the 25th of August. And then the first day of classes is on August the 26th, which is a Wednesday. So that sort of gives you your summer timeline of save the dates. Moving in on the 22nd, student orientation the 22nd through the 25th. First day of classes in the fall is Wednesday, August the 26th. I have in here a note about keeping track of all of your login information. So right now, most of the folks that are participating in this call have two separate accounts for Wabash information. You have the login that you created for your application, whether that was through the Wabash application or through the Common application, as well as your ability to log into financial aid self-service. Those accounts give you access to two separate systems. And so you'll use the tjwade12@gmail.com email address that you use for your application for now. Once you have paid your deposit, about 7 to 10 business days after that happens, you will get an email from the college welcoming you to Wabash that will have your Wabash username and password. So deposited students who've said, I know that I'm coming to Wabash, you get account credentials for your Wabash systems. And then at that point forward, you only need to remember that one username and password to access all things Wabash. If you have issues being able to access your application status page or your financial aid self-service login account, be sure to contact your admission counselor. They will be able to help you with securing your login information for both of those accounts. So that concludes my presentation talking about the new student roadmap. We'll bring John and Bobby back online and then open it up to you all. If students have questions, you can put them in the chat. You can put them in the Q&A. You can raise your hand and I can allow you to talk as a participant. And we can kind of take it away from there. I know one question that we'd had submitted that we wanted to be sure to address was evaluating AP and IB and dual credit courses for possible transfer credits. So I will give that over to Dr. Jump so he can talk a little bit about how that works.
Okay, sure. We do accept a number of credits for AP and IB, International Baccalaureate exams. There's a chart in our online academic bulletin, which you can find off the Wabash webpage, which lists the specific credits that we give and for what tests. If you take a test that you don't see on that list, you can still submit the results. It could just be a test we've never received before, and maybe there is some credit we can give. If you take a test in a area of study or discipline that Wabash doesn't offer, there's a good chance we probably won't accept it. But you can certainly still send us those results. The ones that we do accept are again listed in the bulletin. Typically come in as credit in any of those disciplines. There are a few notable exceptions, mathematics being one of them. There are two different calculus AP tests that you can take. If you take the calculus AB exam and score a 4 or a 5, you can get credit for our calculus 1 course coming in the door. If you take this BC exam and get a or 5, you can get credit. Both are exceptions to the typical rule about elective credit. And so you can see what those are in the bulletin, and also contact me with any questions. Now, dual credit is kind of a different thing. Dual credit has a separate policy for how we approach that. With dual credit, you can often get credit for a course that you took that received both high school and college credit. But in order to get that credit at Wabash, you have to come to Wabash and take a more advanced course or the next course in a sequence and earn a grade of B- higher in order to get back credit for the dual credit course that you took. So that's a little bit different approach with respect to dual credit. I should add that with AP, there is a minimum score requirement. It's either a 4 or a 5 in most cases that will give you credit in AP. For International Baccalaureate, if any of you are taking courses out of that program, you need a score of 5 or 6 or 7, and it has to be at the HL level, the higher learning level. So if you have any further questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to help.
I was going to add too to that. Our website is down currently. And so that section of the academic bulletin that Dr. Jump was referencing, you guys cannot access right now. What we will do is make sure we get that added to the admitted student resource page, and we'll make sure to share it more broadly just so students can see that once the website is back live. What other questions do you all have?
I see one
Or
here.
you can raise your hand, use the chat function, or whatever. So there was a question that was submitted in here. If I do pay the enrollment deposit and decide later that I won't be attending college after all, is the deposit refundable? And the answer to that question is, generally speaking, the enrollment deposit is not refundable. If you do have more specific questions about that, be sure that you talk to your admission counselor. Another question here, can languages like Latin or ancient Greek of some sort satisfy the foreign language requirement?
I'm not sure if you can hear me right now, but the answer to that question is yes. We at Wabash actually offer both Latin and ancient Greek. Those are courses you can take here, and if you have taken them elsewhere, you may be able to transfer them to Wabash as well. But those are courses that you can take at Wabash.
And someone wrote in here, sorry that they were late joiner, when is the placement testing? So placement testing will be made available through the new student roadmap, and students will take that online. We hope to make that available to you all here soon. Placement tests are to be completed by June the 1st. Are there any other, looks like there is another one. I am taking a class through Indiana University at my high school. What do I need to do to get those credit hours approved?
For a dual credit class, we will need, and you would probably submit this as part of your application materials anyway, but we'll need them to come in on an Indiana University transcript showing that they were transcripted by Indiana. And then at that point, the policy I mentioned a couple minutes ago about dual credit would apply for a course that receives both high school and college credit. You can earn credit for that at Wabash, but you, depending on what the discipline is, you would need to take the next course in a sequence in that discipline and earn a B- or higher grade, and then we would award back credit for your dual credit course.
Question here. So by June 1st, we will know what level they will register for. What is the timeline for transcripts from college level classes so the freshman schedule could be finalized?
Well, I think that's probably going to vary college to college, depending on how quickly they can turn around a transcript for a course that they offer. But you know, if your semester's ending at about if their semester is ending at about the same time as ours is, I would imagine by June 1st, that ought to be a possibility.
We have another question submitted here. What would class look like if we are still under the same conditions we are now? I'm assuming with folks being off campus and learning from home. The answer would be it's going to look a lot like what it looks like right now. I don't know, Dr. Horton, if you might want to talk a little bit about some how your classes are working right now.
Sure. Yeah, I want to say I think the college administration is also starting to think about contingency plans. Obviously, we really hope we can be open as we plan to be in August, or even do some of the summer programs that we have, like the Wabash 101 in June, and then some other special programs in July. So we were certainly planning as if that's going to be the case. But like other colleges right now, we're doing all virtual learning experiences. So I teach a social psychology class, a statistics course, and a writing for psychology majors course right now. And so we do a lot. Most of our classes are on Zoom. So I create Zoom meetings for my classes and email the link out. And we can have pretty vibrant discussions via Zoom. It's been pretty effective. Some of the students actually, they sort of prefer it on some level. There we go. I think, yeah, I don't think everybody does. I think most of us and most of our students think it's weird, and on some level it is. But you know, there's a certain novelty to it, and the software is good for facilitating discussion. I call on students a lot to make sure they're sort of with us. And so they have to still prepare pretty effectively for courses. We do, you know, assignment submissions are all via Canvas, our course management software. So they do a lot of electronic uploading of their assignments so that I can grade them. They probably get quicker feedback from me because it's all electronic than they would if they were turning it in on paper. And I think generally that's how we've been functioning. As you might guess, there are some classes that are better equipped to transition to virtual learning than others. Lab courses, for instance, are harder to run effectively from a distance. Studio courses in art are harder to run. But even those courses are being creative in developing ways for students to engage with the material. So we really hope that by August we're ready to open, and we expect to be able to, but we can do this if we need to. I should mention that there are other types of contingency plans that our administration is likely to entertain other than opening in a virtual way in August, right? I'm not saying there's anything on the books. They haven't gotten to this point, but I know some colleges have talked about opening later, right? Not starting the semester until later, until September, mid-September, whatever it takes. So instead of opening in a virtual way, opening in a physical way, but just later in the year. But I know we haven't gotten to the point of deciding what our favored contingency plan is going to be.
So one of the things I did want to point out to add on, so this website here, apply.wabash.edu/portal/admitted resources, has a whole bunch of online tools and resources designed to help students sort of with their decision-making process. You can see a whole bunch of links that are listed here. One of the ones I did want to point out here at the bottom, though, is this calendar that will show you virtual class sessions. So our faculty have been kind enough to open up their virtual classrooms to allow you all to be able to sort of see what our students are seeing right now. So if you want to go in and watch a calculus class tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. with Dr. McKinney, you can sign up and be part of his, I think, Twitch or Discord stream and be able to attend a calculus class. There's ones in economics, theology. There's some others that are involving classics and philosophy. And so definitely want to make sure that students know that they can take advantage of that as well. Had another question come in here. Question is, I know that some colleges have moved to pass-fail. Has Wabash considered this or already moved to this?
Yes. Wabash just last week gave students the option for this spring to take any courses on their schedule on essentially a pass-fail basis if they choose.
I think it's worth noting that we chose not to go to a blanket pass-fail policy because we did not think it was in the best service of all of our students. So we decided to give students the option of converting as many of their courses they wanted to pass-fail, but we didn't want to mandate it because we know there are students who really need and want to get graded work for this semester.
Another question submitted here. Due to the ongoing pandemic situation, the examinations in my country have been postponed and results might not be out by mid-June. Would that pose a problem? The answer to that question is, generally speaking, it depends. My advice would be to work really closely with Chris Dixon, our international student, or the person who's the Associate Director for International Recruitment, as well as Amy Weir, who is the Director of International Programs. Amy and Chris will be able to best provide you specific guidance on sort of what examinations and the visa process might look like going forward. Let's see. That were all the questions that have been submitted so far. If there are any other questions, please put them in the chat now or move or enter them into the Q&A. And I'll pause for a little bit. John and Bobby, do you guys have any closing thoughts?
I don't think so. No. No, I'm just I'm very pleased for the opportunity to get to talk with you tonight. And if you have any questions about anything I covered, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure that goes the same for all of us.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly that, that I wish we were, again, face-to-face and eye-to-eye, and where y'all could come up and shake our hand and ask us any questions you had. But certainly we want to make ourselves available to you, and know that you can find all three of us on the website or by Googling us. Strangely enough, you can probably get us. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that come up, any questions that come up after today. And I really look forward to seeing many of you at Wabash 101 in June. That's a good time. I hope a lot of you take us up on that invitation.
It looks like we do not have any other questions that have been submitted. I do want to remind students, so this apply.wabash.edu/portal/admitted resources is an awesome place to find out a whole bunch of information about Wabash and to answer a lot of your questions. There will be a second version of this curriculum and advising and new student roadmap webinar going to be taking place next Tuesday, April the 7th in the evening. We also have just confirmed today that there will be a housing and residence life webinar taking place next week and then the week after that, which we will be providing more information for as well. So in addition to some questions, I just want to point out a couple other resources here. So if students have questions about their financial aid, there's a link on this website to be able to make a financing appointment and talk to our colleagues in the financial aid office to be able to answer what sort of questions you might have about financing your Wabash education. There's also the opportunity here to schedule a video chat with your admissions counselor. So if you have specific questions and you don't want to talk to somebody over the phone, or you're used to living in your COVID-19 world of hanging out, sheltering in place, and want to see a friendly face, we would be happy to answer all of your questions or just talk a little bit about your college search in general. That's an option that's open to both students and their families. And then we're going to continue to add more resources to this website. And so make sure that you bookmark it, check back often. We definitely want to make sure that we give you all the time that we can to be able to answer whatever questions you might have. With that being it, and I don't think we have gotten any other questions so far, I want to thank Dr. Horton and Dr. Jump for their time this afternoon. We want to thank you all for joining us today. Hope that you stay happy and healthy, and wish you all the best in your college search. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. You can get to me via email. My email address is wadet@wabash.edu, or feel free to call or text me at 765-721-0927. That especially might be useful to folks who are having issues logging into their accounts. Again, you can contact me or your admission counselor. One question did just pump in here before the gun. Any idea when the website will be back up? I assume that our IT staff are working on that and trying to get that made live as quickly as they are able to. So I'm hoping that we'll have it live maybe today, certainly by tomorrow morning. But we also are making sure that we share information on the Go to Wabash social media on our Twitter account. So if you don't follow us on Twitter, be sure to do that already. Hopefully we can get the website live soon, but have tried to share links to stuff in the meantime. Again, I want to thank you all for joining us and hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.